Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to do a quick review of the movie I Am Mother, which someone recommended to me on one of my reviews of Raised by Wolves, which is a series about androids who raise human babies. And someone told me it's a ripoff of all kinds of things, including I Am Mother, and so I checked out this movie, and I actually really liked it, much more than I liked Raised by Wolves for a few reasons. First of all, one of my complaints in that series was that the androids are basically just like humans in every way, humans with superpowers, and they don't really feel robotic at all. And it kind of loses what makes robots interesting. The fact that robots, are actually mechanical and not organic, not just different organics like those biological robots in Raised by Wolves. So the robot in this movie was actually robotic, much more realistic looking, and also the behavior itself is more robotic, meaning it's like a computer talking with you. And so I think that's much more interesting because it makes it more ambiguous how sentient the robot actually is, and so that raises more interesting philosophical question to think about. And a lot of androids in new TV shows and movies kind of became too advanced in the sense that they're basically like human in every way, so there is no question that they really are sentient and they're basically like people and they should have rights and all of that. That was one of my problems in Star Trek Picard with those new android characters who are basically organic and basically like human in every way, only with superpowers. And I think it's less interesting because it's not as ambiguous, it's not that gray area, that line which is undetermined of where exactly sentience begins. And then it's less interesting because no one really questions that. Even visually, when a robot is basically like human, an organic robot, then it's basically like us. But if it's actually robotic, it's even more interesting in the technical sense. And so the robot in I Am Mother actually looks like something that can exist in reality in the very near future. And even its behavior, the way it talks, it's kind of like a computer program. So I found all of that a lot more fun. So visually this movie was really well done in my opinion. The acting, there was not a lot of actors, but the acting was pretty good in the human characters. And the robot character also, even though it was very robotic, you can still sense that there's possibly something more, and it does get answered toward the end of the movie. And also, I don't want to spoil it, so I will give a spoiler warning before I go into the details, but in general, I liked how this movie kept all those questions ambiguous, meaning we didn't really know the real full motivation of the robot, and we didn't know, is it good, is it bad, and even in the very end we don't fully know the answer exactly. And so that makes it more interesting in my opinion, because it's not black and white, it's much more of a gray area, and maybe possibly all kinds of necessary evil actions, so there's kind of a morality tales inside the movie. And so I found all of that very interesting, and visually it was really fun, so I do recommend it. And now I will talk about the details of this movie, so if you don't want to get spoiled, stop the video here. So the movie did a good job of keeping itself ambiguous, meaning we don't really know, is the robot good or bad, what is its real intentions. Even when it became clear that it is hiding stuff and keeping secrets, maybe it was still for the greater good, maybe it was still good in the sense that it wanted to do the right thing for humanity. And even in the very end, I think it can be argued that it was indeed its intention. It was simply a matter of the perfectionism of the robot, because it has such high standards, it wants to achieve perfect results and unwilling to compromise, unlike a human. And so that can affect its morality, so it's willing to go to extremes to accomplish its perfect vision, but it doesn't necessarily make it fully evil. It definitely did some evil things, but in its mind maybe it's for the greater good, and so it's left a little bit ambiguous. And I'm actually hoping for a sequel for this movie. I think they established a lot of things which are very good. It's very similar to Terminator and all kinds of dystopian stories about machines taking over humanity in the future and destroying humanity. So apparently the machines took over the planet, destroyed most of humanity, but they are still hoping to resurrect a better humanity. And so they kept all kinds of embryos of humans, who I presume to be genetically engineered, because this mother character is trying to raise the perfect human. And they also show us that when they activate one of the embryos to grow it, it takes only 1 day to grow, and so that seems to indicate some kind of genetic engineering, otherwise it wouldn't be possible. So I'm presuming these are all augmented humans and not normal ones, and the machine mother is planning to resurrect humanity in a better way, maybe more machine-like. and we find out that it aborted and terminated earlier children which did not measure up to its standards, and so that kind of makes it evil by human standards, of course. And there's all kinds of scenes earlier on when she's educating the girl and is trying to teach it the benefits of sacrifice for the greater good and so on. So we can argue that in its mind it's still doing the right thing and it's not pure evil. And another twist which I liked is that this mother robot is basically the same consciousness as all the other robots. We find out earlier in the movie that there are robots outside who are destroying humanity outside of this facility, and yet this mother robot is apparently better than they are, and yet in the end it's revealed they're basically all the same mind. It's a collective consciousness, and so all of these robots are the same machine, and that's a twist I liked. It makes sense to me. It's an idea that a lot of other science fiction kind of don't want to do for some reason. It's always, one robot is different from others, or everyone are different, or there's a queen robot that if you destroy that robot, all the other robots die, and that's kind of ridiculous. And yet this movie goes the more realistic approach and just says that all of these robots are the same exact consciousness, and it doesn't matter if you kill the mother one, she will still live in the other ones, and so it doesn't really matter. And so that's a twist I liked. It's an idea that for some reason a lot of other science fiction just don't want to do. They don't like the idea of collective consciousness and multiple robots working as one. For some reason movies don't like that, maybe because it doesn't provide that easy solution of destroying one robot and then you kill all of them, which is kind of a too easy solution for a movie which wants to finish with a happy ending. So this movie doesn't do that, and I really was almost relieved to see that. I was happy to see that it takes a more interesting approach, in my opinion. And it kind of makes it all much more creepy, because we saw those other robots outside and they were much more militaristic, and the mother one was much nicer, and in the end it's revealed that it's all the same thing basically, and everything was planned by the mother robot all along, which makes it more clever. And that also fixes a complaint I would have had with this movie, because early on this robot mother did all kinds of silly things which I viewed as mistakes, meaning I couldn't accept why is this robot so stupid, why didn't she lock the door, why didn't she make sure to have all kinds of safeties, and yet in the very end it's revealed that she planned the whole thing from the start, and so all of those mistakes by her were actually deliberate, and so that makes her a much more clever character, and that's something I like in my movies. I like characters who are clever, not ones who are stupid just because the writers don't know how to get certain things happen, and so they just make the character stupid. So it does not happen here. At least in the end it's revealed that it actually was all planned, and basically she grew this human woman, and she wants her to grow the next generation of humans. It's not clear if it was planned all along or if it was kind of a spontaneous decision to let her do it after she pleads her to let her raise the kids herself. And we can view the whole events of this whole movie as kind of a test, maybe the final test, to see if she lives up to her designs, if she's strong enough to take responsibility or whatever. So we can view all of the events in this movie as part of the plan of this AI, and so it makes sense to me, because AI is supposed to be much more clever than humans, and so if this human managed to outsmart this AI, I would have laughed at that. I wouldn't take it as seriously, and yet this movie takes a more realistic approach, and so obviously an AI like this should be much smarter than any human, even a genetically engineered one. And this is also why I'm kind of curious to see a sequel. I hope there will be a sequel, because I liked what they established. I like the fact that we know there are robots ruling the planet, and now we have a new generation of augmented genetically engineered humans who maybe they will be so brilliant they will be able to do something against the machines in the future. Or maybe they will work together. That's also a possibility. Maybe machines and humans can coexist. Maybe that's why the machines wanted to create humans who would be much better than the old humans, so that they could reason with them better and work together, and so maybe that's why they did all of this. And this is why I'm not even sure I would call the machines in this movie straight up villains, because even though obviously they did a lot of immoral things, obviously they committed genocide against humanity, but also their accusation against humanity was also correct, that humanity was evil and stupid and all of that. That's mostly correct, and also they don't want to fully destroy humanity. They simply want to kind of cleanse it and to keep the better humans and maybe start a new civilization which will be better. So it's not really a totally evil plan. Now, obviously, their standards are way too high and they expect perfection, which will never be the case with organic life forms. And so, in that sense, they are evil because nothing will ever do will satisfy them completely, and then they'll want to destroy us again. So, technically, they are villains. I'm just saying they're not totally evil villains, that they do have some good intentions, and that makes a more interesting villain. That's also something I like because a villain is more interesting when it's more complex, when it's all the gray area of morality. It's not just straight up evil for the sake of being evil, but it's because of some misunderstanding or some flaw in their own design, that they are too perfectionist, they're unable to compromise, and that makes them so dangerous and so bad for humanity. And maybe in a sequel, if it's really a consciousness, if it's a sentient life form, just robotic, maybe it would be possible to reason with it. And so I actually would love to see a sequel to this movie because I felt it's a good science fiction done well, which raises a lot of philosophical and ethical and morality questions, which we can debate and talk about. So it seems to be a very simplistic movie on the surface, like not a lot of things happen. It's all in this one facility, most of the movie, with very few characters, and yet it touches on a lot of very interesting science fiction, classic science fiction ideas, and it's done in a good way, and even the special effects are done well, and we do see some of the outside later in the movie, and it's all kind of dystopian, destroyed humanity. All of that is something I kind of like in science fiction if it's done well, and also it's not too depressing, meaning, because the machines are not totally evil, they do want to save humanity, they just want to make it better, and so it's not intended to totally wipe out all of humanity, and so it's not as scary of an ending. It's kind of optimistic in a sense because the mother basically lets her continue living and raising new children in this facility, and maybe those humans really will be better than the old ones, so maybe in a sense they did do us a favor, and so that's why it's not a totally depressing dystopian ending. It's kind of almost optimistic in its own dark way. And so I really liked the ideas in this movie. It's not a perfect movie, it's kind of cheap in places, not a lot of actors, not a lot of action. But I liked all those psychological parts, I liked the morality tales, I like the philosophical questions this movie raises about AI versus humans and all of that. I thought it really felt like a fresh take on a lot of those ideas done in a clever new way. And so I really like this movie. So that's all I have to say about it for today. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comment section below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.